Hello and welcome to Dialogue. I'm Yang Rui in Beijing. China has been actively involved in the post-war reconstruction of Afghanistan and promises to assist with the process of national reconciliation with the military down of the NATO. But Kabul says it's not very happy about the outcome of the Quadrilateral Coordination Group in bringing the Taliban to the negotiating table. Can Taliban fit into the broader picture of the Belt and Road Initiative? And can Afghanistan be transformed from the current observer state to a formal member state of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization? Today, I feel quite honored to be joined here in this edition of Dialogue by His Excellency Mr. Abdullah, Chief Executive of the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan, during his current official visit to Beijing. But before we start the interview, let's look at this.
Abdullah has served as Chief Executive of the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan since September 2014. After the downfall of the Taliban regime, Abdullah was appointed Minister of Foreign Affairs of the interim administration in 2001. Following the Afghan presidential election in 2004, Abdullah was one of the few people who kept their positions from the transitional government and was reappointed as Minister of Foreign Affairs for another year. In 2010, he created the Coalition for Change and Hope and transformed it into the National Coalition of Afghanistan a year later. After months of deadlock and an election in crisis, the new Afghan president, Ashraf Ghani, was sworn in. Abdullah, Ghani's opponent in the election, was also sworn in the same day as Chief Executive Officer, a role created during the election crisis to bring together both sides under a national unity. Amidst a fragile economic situation and security challenges, the new government faces a tough road ahead. At the invitation of Chinese Premier Li Keqiang, Abdullah kicked off his 4-day visit to China last Sunday. Premier Li held a welcoming ceremony for Chief Executive Abdullah and held talks with him on Monday. Both sides vowed to promote a strategic partnership of cooperation, and 6 documents on bilateral cooperation were inked. For centuries past, its location along the Silk Road has made Afghanistan a strategic partner for its neighbours. China, as an economic power in Asia, has consistently taken an active part in the reconstruction and reconciliation of Afghanistan, from investment projects to supporting peace talks with the Taliban as part of the Quadrilateral Coordination Group.
Welcome to Dialogue, Your Excellency. What are the major issues you discuss with the Chinese counterpart, Premier Li Keqiang?
It was mainly bilateral issues. Of course, there were issues which relates to all, which is security and stability, but mainly on bilateral cooperation, issues of peace and reconciliation, fight against terrorism, helping stability, regional economic cooperation, and the support that China has provided to us on different aspects of it. And how we proceed with that.
Are you happy with the current level of cooperation and the level of China's support for your post-war reconstruction?
China has contributed to post-war reconstruction of Afghanistan right from the beginning. In 2001, when I was the Prime Minister, 2001 and 2002, I remember very vividly the first package of Chinese support was for the offices of Afghanistan, office equipment, very timely support. It started with that, and then it continued with hundreds of millions of dollars of worth assistance in reconstruction of the country, in health, education, in the agriculture, cultural issues, and support for the infrastructure. Of course, the country, Afghanistan, has gone through difficult times in the past 4 decades, and the needs are there, and there are lots of priorities for us. But China has stood by us and has helped us in different fields, and this visit of mine was another opportunity to discuss it. How we can work together on the basis of friendly relations and mutual respect for the future of both countries.
Afghanistan is, of course, a very important neighboring country for China. in the sense that we have to work together to fight terrorism. It's not surprising that Afghanistan and China joined hands in the post-war reconstruction, but it does come as a surprise that even some of the Americans who are very watchful about the rise of China hailed China's participation in your reconstruction as a landmark event because of the geopolitical competitions between the two powers. Now, what do you make of the constructive relationship between the United States and China? And some of the Chinese observers even went as far as to say our increasing presence, I mean business presence in Afghanistan, should be an indispensable part of the US exit strategy. The US exit strategy is criticized. It's missing for most of the time in either Iraq or Afghanistan. Well, that is the point of a critical point for some of the skeptics. What do you think?
Two things in that regard. First, relations between two neighboring countries, Afghanistan and China, which has its historic background for centuries. And also, China has helped Afghanistan through difficult times during the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan and after that. So there is a strong foundation for relations between both countries. And then comes the cooperation of the countries which have helped Afghanistan altogether. The United States, as a lead country in supporting Afghanistan, has encouraged expansion of relations between Afghanistan and other countries. In regards to Afghanistan, there is a situation that countries which otherwise have other type of relations in between themselves, they find it convenient to help Afghanistan because stability and security of Afghanistan is important for the region, and also terrorism is not just against Afghanistan, but it's a global threat. So anything that helps stabilization of Afghanistan and improvement of the situation and environment in Afghanistan is welcomed. Last year, in the sideline of the UN General Assembly, a meeting was chaired, co-chaired, between Afghanistan, China, and the United States, and Foreign Minister Wang Yi and Secretary Kerry and myself. Three of us co-chaired that meeting, and all of us, three of us, encouraged other countries to do their part, and while thanking them for their part in the past, at the same time encouraged them to continue their long-term commitment, because that we consider in the interest of all.
President Ghani chose the PRC as the first foreign country to visit after he took office. And to my knowledge, you and President Ghani were very tough competitors in the presidential race. What about the cooperation between you, the chief executive, and your president? Is that part of the process of national reconciliation, other relations between the Taliban and the Afghan government? I mean, a lot of people show great interest in this meaningful process.
The reconciliation is with those who are fighting against us. And we have opened the door for reconciliation. But in the elections, we competed, we contested. We are part of one system now, unity government. President Ghani is the president of Afghanistan, and I am the chief executive. And the success of our country depends on the unity as a whole amongst the people of Afghanistan, and also unity within the government. And we are working based on that spirit, and we are supporting the cause, which is the cause of the interest of the country, in the national interest of Afghanistan, in helping the country, in helping improving the lives for our people.
How do you assess the outcome of President China last year?
No, it was good. It was a landmark visit. It was, as you yourself mentioned, one of the first foreign trips, and that shows the importance that we attach to our relations with China.
But to my knowledge, India an important neighboring country of Afghanistan, also pledged generous support and investment in Afghanistan, in the reconstruction. How do you balance your relationship between these two most populous countries in the world? India is said to be the most populous democracy. China is the second biggest economy. But in between we have Pakistan, and there is a Taliban in Pakistan, also a Taliban in your country. So you see, this is a picture.
The picture looks as yourself mentioned, but India has helped Afghanistan nevertheless. Hundreds of millions of dollars, $2 billion of worth assistance in the past 15 years. And in different fields, infrastructure, electricity, health, education, agriculture, all together. India's assistance to Afghanistan has been effective in terms of helping our people in bringing positive changes in the country. When we shape our relations with different countries of the region, we shape it on the basis of our national interest, on the basis of our principles, which are cooperation, friendly relations, respect, and mutual ways. And our hope is that the relations between the countries otherwise will not affect us adversely. For example, look at the relations between the Islamic Republic of Iran and the United States of America in the past 15 years.
Since recently, since the 1979 Islamic Revolution.
Yes, since that time. But I'm referring to the past 15 years of Afghanistan, post-Taliban Afghanistan. And while they went through difficult days and tough days and challenging times in their relations, and recently there is a new opening, which is good for us, which is good for our region. But at the same time, they both helped Afghanistan. They didn't put Afghanistan under the shadow of their own relations, because they recognized that helping stabilization of Afghanistan is in their interest. Helping rehabilitation, reconstruction of Afghanistan is in their interest. In the same way, we expect other countries also to look at it as an issue of common and shared interest. It will not, if Afghanistan is destabilized, no country will benefit from it.
But what about the response from the Europeans towards your process of a national reconstruction and reconciliation? Because Afghanistan is said to have exported not only terrorism, the Taliban, 200,000 of them went to Europe last year as refugees. You also export drug. I mean, much of the Afghan economy depends on the production and export of drugs. Is that a problem that will be very hard to be rooted out?
I hope that your question does not mean blaming Afghanistan for these issues.
No, not blaming the Afghan government.
Or Afghanistan.
The warlords.
No, as a whole. If there are terrorists from Xinjiang which are fighting against us, what's our problem with them? Because they are terrorists, they are fighting against us. We are standing against them.
You are referring to the East Turkestan Islamic movement?
ETIM, yes. It's not, it didn't start a few years ago.
They are our common enemy.
They are our common enemy. So that's not the product of Afghanistan. Terrorism is a phenomenon which is now a global threat, and also a threat in the region vis-a-vis different countries. The war was imposed upon Afghanistan. Al-Qaeda was imposed upon Afghanistan. And those policies of supporting Taliban in the past had led to a situation where Taliban hosted Al-Qaeda in other terrorist groups. And the people of Afghanistan resisted against the Taliban. And later on, the world helped us in support of our efforts. At the same time, you asked about European countries. European countries have been one of the largest contributors to the reconstruction of Afghanistan, worth billions of dollars of assistances in the past. And those assistances have created altogether the countries which have helped us. You see two pictures. One is the threat of terrorism and narcotics, which both of them are global issues. The side of it is that life for millions of people, of Afghans, men and women, have changed for better. The part of the country has been reconstructed. There is energy, there is electricity, there is road construction, the hospitals, schools, agriculture has developed.
You mean women enjoy equal opportunity for
that's
education?
Right. There is elections are
what
important.
What about women's political participation?
Women are participating in the political process from the elections up to the government, and we have 4 ministers at the moment. There are plenty of them in the parliament of Afghanistan, more than 25% presence in the parliament of Afghanistan in both houses. These are the results of the efforts of the Afghan people, supported by the international community. You asked me about Europe. Europe also, I think European Union is the second largest donor to Afghanistan. Now there is the issue of migration. This is also a phenomena that's not just limited to Afghanistan, but also to other countries, and some of the Afghans who had spent time in refugees outside Afghanistan have migrated, and some from within Afghanistan. But our effort is to stabilize the situation, and that's why I'm saying and emphasizing that a contribution to stabilization of Afghanistan will help all countries to stabilize the situation further and to create hopes for the people of Afghanistan within the country will address some of those problems.
Thank you very much. You are watching Dialogue with Mr. Abdullah, Chief Executive of the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan. We are very happy to be able to interview him during his current official visit to our country. We'll be back in a short while. Stay with us. Welcome back, Your Excellency.
Thank you.
Stories of Afghanistan generated front-page stories for years, since perhaps the Soviet invasion in the 1980s. Now, part of the devastation that the Taliban wreaked with your country was the destruction of the Bamiyan Buddha. Can you brief our viewers about the restoration, if any, or rebuilding of that famous legacy of your history?
Yes, that was a famous legacy of world history and part of world heritage. Unfortunately, it was destroyed by the Taliban. There have been lots of ideas to create a sort of laser model of it, or to rebuild it. UNESCO has been involved, in certain countries have shown interest, but the site is still as it was after the destruction. No work has been done, but Bamiyan is also a site for many cultural heritages and a tourist attraction. You will be surprised to see that hotels there are working in full. Tourists are visiting Bamiyan from different parts of the world, but what we have lost is, unfortunately, we have lost it, and it will not be recovered in the same way. No way that we have it back.
That is a bleeding wound for the whole world, I'm afraid. Now, I was told that your government complains that the quadrilateral coordination group has failed to bring representatives of the Taliban to the negotiating table. Is that true? Can you brief us about what is going on? What is the progress?
While the Taliban have not come to the negotiating table, that does not mean that the quadrilateral initiative was not a good one. It was a good initiative. Countries which have worked together and also have a lot in common, a lot at stake, and getting together and trying to facilitate negotiations, reconciliation process Afghan-owned and Afghan-led political negotiation process. That was a good effort. The result, the expected, is not that anymore. So what could be done? Countries will discuss it amongst themselves. But yes, there were high expectations, but it was the right effort. We haven't seen what was expected, but that does not mean that we should give up on it.
Right. The investment environment is very important for foreign direct investment, for the reconstruction. Therefore, law and order and security come across as the top concerns for those who really want to go to Afghanistan and help you and assist your government in the rebuilding process. What about the reliability of your security forces, which have been trained by the U.S.? And I believe all the donor countries also did a lot to help you.
The point is that earlier, a few years ago, there were 150,000 foreign troops in Afghanistan. That was just a few years ago, 2, 3, 4 years back. And today it is, we're talking about 10,000, a little bit more, international forces in Afghanistan. That means that our security institutions, our security forces have shouldered a huge responsibility.
But by the end of this year, the U.S. military drawdown will be finished.
We will see. We will see whether the United States...
Do you agree or do you not agree that they should be withdrawn?
I would say that the continued commitment in support from the U.S. as well as resolute support mission, which includes lots of countries, continued commitment is important. The United States as the lead country has been instrumental in bringing support from other countries as well as contributing itself. My point is that their mission is important and continued support is important, but in a few months' time, in 2 months' time in Warsaw, there will be NATO, which parts of these issues will be discussed. The principle of continued support is there, and we believe that that's needed, but what shape it will take, that will be decided later.
Well, you did not answer my question directly.
But the decision is for them to make that decision. How much, for how long, we cannot decide for themselves. We say that the need for their continued presence is there. Was this direct enough?
Diplomatic enough. It's diplomatic enough. You will visit Urumqi, the capital city of Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region, but a few years ago there was a deadly terrorist attack. What do you think of the stability in Xinjiang and its relationship for your peace and reconstruction?
I would say that this will be my first visit, and I'm looking forward to that. Tonight I'm leaving for Urumqi, and I'll stay overnight, and I'll spend it tomorrow, and then leave for Afghanistan. Western part of China I have not visited, and it's important. It's close to, it's closer to our neighborhood, and there is a lot of business between business communities of both our country and Xinjiang autonomous region, and we will, during my visit, we will see further opportunities how to move forward.
How do you see the chance for being transformed from the observer state to a full member state of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization in the near future?
And yesterday also, this is our desire. I raised it with Prime Minister Li Keqiang, and China is supporting that, but of course it has to go through the process. It has to follow the process, but we have support of the member states of Shanghai Cooperation Organization. This will be another forum of regional cooperation in terms of the challenges the common challenges that we are all faced with.
Do you think that your full membership in the SCO, Shanghai Cooperation Organization, will be very important for Afghanistan with the ambitious vision of China in building the Belt and Road Initiative?
Yes, that will be one part. That is one part of the cooperation, but since the focus of SCO is on security and stability, that will help that countries of the region are member states, and we all have shared interest, and that will help the region as well as Afghanistan in big deal.
Okay, thank you very much. I really appreciate your
Thank you.
Your
Thank you for your time.
with
Good to
China.
see you again after many years, after 12 years.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank
We
you.
appreciate
Thanks.
it.
Thanks.